Welcome to session 24. I hope that many of you have made it the whole run. This is like the last 5 kilometers of the marathon. We're almost there. You can see the finish line. It's the hardest hour we're going to get through, but we know we'll get there. And this session's a nice light-hearted one to get us across the line. This session will talk about all the other different tools that are beneficial for you as an Archicad practice to include in your tool chest to benefit your business and increase the productivities and efficiencies. So I'll hand it over to myself and close out the event. Thanks a lot. Whenever I run events, I like to run events with the last session being as relaxed as possible and not as technical as it normally is throughout the whole session. It's been a long day, so let me just touch through an agenda that I want to go through and try and cover through over the next 35, 40 minutes. First of all, talk about a bit of an introduction into the topic. Then I'll talk to you about some BIM tools, and some of them aren't so new. And then a bit of a conclusion to close out the session and the whole conference. So first of all, we have to think about the way in which we work. Now, for many Archicad users, the biggest challenge we have is that Archicad actually is pretty well self-contained, and as a piece of software and as a BIM tool, it actually does quite a lot by itself without actually needing to interact with many other tools. Throughout today, you've seen presentations where we've seen the integration of other visualization tools, coding tools, specification tools, issue management tools that help and assist Archicad users to perform their role better. Now, at the same time, I think that we all have to realize that by adding these tools, we can make our practice better. So this session is really about trying to open up people's eyes to opportunities that are out there to enhance the way in which they work. Now, by no means are these tools new. A lot of these have been around for a long time, and many people may already have these implemented already within their business. But what I like to do is just try and raise awareness as to what these tools actually are. So it means that people could have an opportunity to use them moving into the future. Now, with every tool and every process or every implementation of piece of technology, be it software or hardware, there needs to be a business case attached to it. So from my perspective, these are the kind of areas that I always look at whenever I make a decision within my business and its current standing as Skewed, or when I was a director at Fulton Trotter Architects, a larger architectural practice. So the first thing is if I'm going to implement a tool, a software, a piece of hardware, or a process even, not just a piece of technology, will this implementation reduce risk? So primarily as an architect, it's actually quite a risky environment. Everything that we do every day involves a high level of risk. So therefore, we need to reduce the risk of being sued under our professional indemnity insurance and being negligent. So is there a way in which, by implementing this, will it actually make our business safer? Secondly, I look at, is it going to save us time and money? So it's all about efficiencies. So the costs associated with implementing something, can I actually make that time back? Can I make that back in time on my projects? Is a multiplier. Now, one of the things that I talk to people a lot about is when I'm investing in technology or investing in Archicad processes or templates and the time it takes to do it, normally I want to try and get a return on investment in 12 months. And the reason for that is because we don't know where the software is going to go in 12 months' time. What's the next release going to be like? The next release could completely throw about all of the challenges that you may have, and might mean that you have to rebuild again and you have to do it all from scratch again. So the key thing is that in any implementation, you need to think of how much it's going to save you in time, which essentially equals cost and money, over a 12-month period by implementing. And then that cost can't go over that. One of the things that's really important too is coming up with an item which I always look at as really important is a point of difference. So by working with you, is this going to be, by using these tools, is it going to be a service that's going to increase the experience of the people that you're communicating and collaborating with? So is it going to make it easier for your clients to work with you? Will they get a better outcome from working with you because of it? Because your competitors aren't doing this, or is it going to mean that consultants that you're working with are going to be able to understand the outcomes that are really important? Because then what happens is if you're easy to communicate with and collaborate with because of the tools and processes you have in place, there's a good chance that that consultant might be more profitable on your projects compared to your competitors, and therefore you'll get more competitive fees. And when it comes to fees these days, we all know that the challenge is that clients are going to go with always the lowest cost. Most of them anyway. Some of them recognise value, but when we're competing on government style work or other larger major projects, it's always about price. So to be more competitive than your peers, you want to be able to have a whole team that works very well together, has very well established processes. And the final one, which I always think's really, really important, but a lot of people are forgetting about, and this is always in my strategic thinking about how I'm going to move my business forward, is remaining relevant. So sometimes these implementations and these tools possibly might not be all something about remaining relevant, but from my perspective, remaining relevant might be having a tool that you need to actually perform your task and deliver the outcomes for your clients. So they're the type of things that all have to come together to make the business case and making a decision to driving this. And yes, there could be arguments and debates about, well, actually, Nathan, there's HR issues. Is it going to make my staff happier? So they're going to want to work with me because I'm using this tool, or other issues about all of these different, pieces of the puzzle. But typically, they're the kind of fundamental things that I kind of look at. So in terms of the BIM tools today, we're not going to go through too many because, and unfortunately, I'm not going to do deep diving in each of these. It'd be nice to do deep dives in each of these, and they'd probably be a half a day in learning in each of them. Oh, well, not all of them, but some of them. But what I want to do today is we're going to talk through just 5 tools, okay? So one of the ones I want to talk through is the use of 360-degree cameras and kind of online cloud computing that generates essentially turns them into photogrammetry, like Matterport is one of them, but there's many others available. ModelPort 2.0, once again, this is not a new tool, but it's something that's been developed out of the US that a lot of people may not be aware of. I want to talk about the 3D Connection Space Mouse. I know there's a number of people around the world that use these currently, and I just want to share my experiences with it and might be something that might be of interest to you as well. And I want to talk to you about Archicad trees and my beliefs on how they can help be used and generate better outcomes for you within visualization of your projects and documentation. And then closing out with Simple BIM. So for those that are aware of my history and past, you'll know how passionate I am about Open BIM and how much I like driving for IFC workflows. And this tool in itself, I think, and I'm not going to do it justice in this presentation this morning, we need a lot more training to be able to get under the hood and pull this wonderful beast of a piece of software apart. But it is a wonderful tool to add to the collection. So let's start off. So first of all, one of the things I think about a lot when it comes to existing information site capture, amount of times I've gone onto site and we go and take a heap of photos. We pick out our iPhone, we pick up our phone, and we go click, 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 and we walk away from site, and we do not. And this site's typically aren't just a 5-minute drive down the road. I've had to fly 2, 3, 4 hours, or sometimes drive 3 or 4 hours to actually get out to a site. So you can imagine going and if you miss the key component on a site, the time to actually drive and or fly to go and capture that information is considerable. Now, back in 2017, I think, or 2018, I had a visit where I had to go up to Townsville for a site visit. We only had one visit to actually capture and understand the information. So I went out and purchased a Insta360 camera the day before I flew up. And the ability to use a 360-degree camera to take shots and photos in each of the individual rooms meant that you could spin around and capture all of those things. Now, there are workflows that real estate agents have been using for quite a while now, and moving on to it. So basically this last few months, I've actually upgraded to a Ricoh Theta V. And what you'll find with the Ricoh is the ability for it to play your movie because it didn't want to play. But this was a really bad example, I think. I went out into my backyard and took off 7 shots in the sunlight. So it really wasn't the best. You can see there's a lot of noise in it, but I think this methodology of viewing is probably not the best for it. But doing it on an internal and inside environment, you'll actually pick up a bit more. But then once you'll see when I change to the camera view where it picks up the 360-degree shots, it actually enables you to then see what's going on. So imagine going to a site that's remote, and you need to capture all of this information and understand what's going on. Now, yes, today we had an earlier presentation from David on point cloud capturing. Those machines aren't cheap. The Ricoh Theta V is a $650 camera. And when you think about the cost of travel to a site, it might cost you on one project, it might cost you that much if you miss key information. But the nice thing about this is that, yes, it's not 100% accurate, but what we can do is we can actually measure off the areas or lengths of air within a reasonable accuracy. Now, I was silly enough to do this on the outside, and there's other tools available apart from Matterport at the moment. But Matterport, I think, when you actually buy their $3,000 Australian laser camera, you can actually do scans with that. And from then, you can then export for a price a point cloud, which you can then turn into a model within Archicad. So there are slightly more expensive processors available. Now, on the other side, there's another tool called MetaReal. And MetaReal at the moment are investigating in a beta phase the ability to export OBJ files. So that could be an option also for you. But one of the things I've used this for is I've taken the 360-degree camera shots and videos. I've then sat at my desk producing design, documentation or concept design work and viewed each of the kind of things to try and see what the existing conditions are doing on these complex spaces that I'm trying to work within. So for me, the camera's paid off. And I'm sure a lot of people that are attending may already have those in place or have something in place to do it. But I think the next step will be using these sorts of cloud-based platforms to actually generate the content as photogrammetry, push it into the software, and then being able to extract floor plans and existing buildings within reasonable accuracy. Now, for a number of years, there's been, on the Autodesk side of the fence, a lot of people would be aware of Recap, Autodesk Recap, and how they've been using photogrammetry on that side. And then last year in my event, I talked about another tool that's been developed out of Russia. The name escapes me right now as to what it's called, but it has the ability to convert series of photos into a model. Now that's something that has huge numbers of data, and when you talk to your surveyors, you'll find that a lot of surveyors are using photogrammetry to generate their outputs as it is today. So that's one of the first things I think is really important. So that's the $2,500, $3,000 camera. If it's something you're doing a lot of, it's a lot cheaper than buying yourself a BLK 360, which sets you back about, in Australia, they sell for about 30,000 Australian dollars. I think in North America, you can buy them for about 15,000 US. So I did some calculations, and on the larger projects we were doing at Fulton Trotter with the larger aged care, I calculated we needed three projects or 4 projects to actually make return on investment. So on a $20,000, $30,000 investment in terms of time saved measuring on site. And mind you, that's thousands of square meters of measuring. So I don't think it's a small thing to make your money back and why you'd invest in a $30,000 piece of equipment. Now, the next one is ModelPort. And this is an add-on that's created from ArchiVista, based in North America. Now, our North American attendees probably are well aware of this product, and it's only something that I've kind of been playing with recently, only because I was wanting to try and find methodologies in a cheap way from which I can take my 360-degree camera, take the shots on site, turn it into a model, and then export it as an OBJ using ModelPort. I haven't gotten to the chance to fully test that yet, but ModelPort opened itself up to me over the last couple of weeks with some of the work that I've been doing for my clients. So it's really helped opening up the door to additional content that it's really inaccessible normally to Archicad users. So some of the key features, really, it enables you to actually import 3ds, DAE, DXF, OBJ, and FBX files, plus a lot more. The new release, which they've got nominated or slated to come out later, don't know when, but it's just on the website that's saying they're bringing out ModelPort 2.1. Will handle SketchUp and Revit as well. But it's not just the ability of bringing it in. So the first thing is being able to bring the stuff in, the content in. But then what it also has is the ability to edit this content when you bring it in. So it enables you to edit all the polygons. In other words, reducing the polygon count, because the second you bring this content in, you realize how big it is and how much it crunches your computer. You can adjust its appearance. So you can adjust its appearance in plan so that it doesn't look as pixelated, which it can do, which you'll see in a moment once I show you what that means, what that does. You can adjust its scale. So some of the objects you will find yourself from the likes of Skewed online, basically created by content creators for, even gaming. Most of this stuff is set up for gaming or other purposes, not really for architects. It's mainly for visualization experts. It could be at the wrong scale. Or you may have a couch that you have provided to you that you've downloaded off a site, but you actually want to change the color of the actual material that the chair's made from. So there's lots of opportunities from there, and similar to the other things I will talk to you about in this session today, there's a lot more features to this than really possible. Now, what this opens up to is, this is an image from Skewed as to one of the models you can get your hands on. I think it might be for 100 or it might be $99 US for something like this, which means you get all of these items. So then that means you can get access to those items, bring it in, filter it down to pick the content you want, and then put it into your renders. Now, here's an example of a bar object that I acquired or purchased the other week when I was doing some project work for a client. So I purchased this object to essentially take key components from it. I didn't actually want the bar. I just wanted the alcohol bottles, some of the glasses and the like. So then I use ModelPort to actually filter out the content and generate what I wanted. But that's it. Fresh from it as an install. Fresh across as an FBX format. The top image you'll see there is direct from Archicad, I think. I can't remember now. Yes, it is Archicad. It's been a long time ago that I actually created those images, but the top image is straight out of Archicad, and the bottom one is Enscape without any changes whatsoever. So the quality that you get from each of the suppliers that are essentially the model makers on these sites is going to vary, and the quality is going to be up and down. So the key thing is that there are a number of sites out there, and if you go on to watch some of the webinars that have been created and information that have been created from ArchiVista in regards to ModelPort, they do talk about a number of sites where you can get a lot of content from. So that's how I've done that, and from that over in the previous fortnight to this event, these are little cut shots out of Enscape that I've sent that I can't demonstrate or show you the full scope because it's confidentiality for my client that I'm working for. But you can see here where I've been taking content and put it into my model. So some of it's come from other places, but most of it's come from the ModelPort plugin. So all of the bottles there have come from another FBX file. So it's quite a great way of being able to populate your models and give them the realistic look in terms of putting the assets into it. It's a good addition to working primarily, first of all, with your Archicad library, and then because I'm using Enscape, adding the Enscape library in on top. Both of those are lacking in the broad variety that I needed to produce these renders. So that is where Model Port has come through to save the day to enable me to deliver this quality for this client, to the point where they're ecstatic and they're basically wanting to work with me more and more because I haven't gotten quality like this from anyone else in the supply chain. So the 3D Connection mouse. So this is the little mouse here, and you would have seen hopefully the movement that I had in my presentation that I did before with where I talked through how with my Enscape presentation in terms of the smooth movements. I picked this mouse up probably 12 months ago, and I know that they've been around for a number of years, and there's a few people that do have them. But I find that even navigating within Archicad, it's so much smoother to actually perform the task of actually moving around and flying within Archicad. It's a lot more precise. So one of the things I've always tried to never do is actually place objects in 3D. I always like working in plan or elevation or section because of the accuracy that you get. But and it becomes down also to the finite movement of trying to scroll your mouse, and scrolling your mouse takes you 300 mil past where you really want to go. The subtle movements you can make with the space mouse within Archicad enable you to be able to get in closer to the elements that you wanted to edit in 3D. And from my perspective, I think that's worked a great deal more for me to be able to resolve the design and work in 3D than ever before compared to working with the standard mouse. Now, these are probably around, you can buy them off Amazon, and they're about 250 Australian dollars, I think, from memory. You can get really convoluted ones, so it's kind of like looks like a spaceship. But the simple model, I've gone for the corded option. So I don't have to replace batteries and don't have to rely on Bluetooth. But there is a Bluetooth option as well, which is wireless. So it's one of the ones I decided didn't need it. But the other thing also is when I'm working in front of clients. So in client meetings, I'll actually open up Enscape, and in opening up Enscape, I can just glide around the model instead of the challenges you have when we all know in Archicad we're sitting there going with the arrow keys or ASDW like gaming style and using the mouse to turn our head around, and we have no ability to change between walk mode and orbit mode because we're basically working on either navigation perspective. From my mind, I think taking the clients through with a more natural, smooth environment actually gives them a greater experience as to how they experience their space. But it also means you can kind of pan, at a high level, move in quickly and adjust the speed of your work and get to experience it more. So from my perspective, it's quite an exciting tool to use. Now, to actually learn more about this one, and I think this is better to probably hear about it from John from ContraBIM, who presented just earlier, has actually done a YouTube video on this early last year, and he talks about it in detail as to how it actually works. So that would actually give you a really good insight in more detail as to how this tool can assist you to work better in terms of more efficiently in 3D. I certainly have found it a lot better, and also so from an internal perspective in terms of working by myself, in terms of working during design, but also when I'm working with clients and actually presenting with clients, I'll actually take it with me with my laptop and put it out and navigate that way for them, so that it just feels a lot smoother to work with compared to our traditional mouse and keyboard methodology. So moving on to ArchiRadar. Now, this is one of the things that I think we've got to really think about, and what I mean by that is that sometimes we find strengths and weaknesses in each of our tools, and then we find ways to plug holes. So a good example is I couldn't find content for the production of my shop renders. So I couldn't get it from Archicad, I couldn't get it from Enscape, so I wasn't going to complete it. So I went and purchased Modelport. Now, the same sense, external works, I have now used Archiradar to actually populate some external renders that I've done, because the content that I can obtain from other sources that I'm subscribed to isn't adequate. So Archiradar is as it not only does trees, but trees are my angle for today. You'll see some of their marketing through Facebook and LinkedIn and Instagram about not just their tree content, but all of their other content in regards to railings and a lot of other things in which they service their Italian community. But from my perspective, they're also a reasonably priced product to actually get an outcome in terms of what you're trying to achieve. The content, it doesn't have a life on it. You purchase a single one-off price to buy it, and you get to use it, which is when you see the results, you'll understand. So when I do my evaluation for things, I try to think through all of the different kind of scenarios I'm going to need to produce information. So one of the things that's really important is I'm comparing this against out of the box. Okay, now I could put up my Enscape content on there as well, but I don't feel like doing that today. We've already seen how Enscape performs as content within Archicad, so I don't want to go on about that. But at the moment, the out-of-the-box solution with trees in Archicad is very poor. So at the moment, it looks okay in plan. You can get the symbols up in plan. It looks okay with the out-of-the-box. In elevation, it's hit and miss, because sometimes you have to have, it'll put up a textured board, and sometimes it might look right, but sometimes it won't. And also when it's in Archicad in 3D, you'll end up with the panel, the single flat panel, or it has a cross panel where it has two specific cross angles where it basically has the same image across the two sides to try and look like a plant. It's not really that crash shot in my opinion, and I know I have seen users use the out-of-the-box plants and the straight planes across those elevations and BIMX and that, and I have to say it looks really bad. It looks poor. It takes away from it. And the main reason, I guess, why we're looking to try and put plants or landscape into our models is because that's what happens in real life. It actually makes our models actually look really good. It makes our architecture look better when there's landscape around it rather than just the bare architecture itself. Now, Archiradar, from my perspective, and you'll see this in a couple of moments, ticks the box regarding the ability to present itself nicely in plan, in elevation. So that ticks the boxes for how we want our documentation to appear, and documentation to appear probably more so in concept design regarding elevations, but for plans, it's actually probably more suitable even all the way through to documentation for landscape planting plans. Archiradar, which we'll see in a moment, looks really good in Archicad in 3D. It fills a gap for me where Enscape content doesn't actually work in BIMX, and it looks really good in Enscape. So it ticks the boxes from my perspective across all of those different deliverables and output needs. Now, the other two areas that I think that are really important to look at is the parametric nature and the uniqueness. Now, the challenges you get with the out-of-the-box content is, yes, it is parametric, but is it parametric? It really just stretches the images up and down depending upon the size you tell it to be. And the uniqueness really, I kind of say, is a halfway there type approach where all it's really doing is stretching the image, and it doesn't really create uniqueness. The user has to make it unique. Now, the positives of Archiradar is that each of the objects are parametric, or the parametric suite is. And there is a button that is a randomizer. Now, that's how nature is as well. So the other challenges we face with the out-of-the-box objects is that there's no uniqueness to them. Each one's exactly the same. You might mirror it or or what have you to try and create that uniqueness, but the coding within the GDL that Archicad has put together on their trees enables it to generate unique geometry for each tree that you place if you choose to. Now, to me, that's what you want. That's what nature is. That's what normal is. So that also fixes a weakness that Enscape has with its objects and its trees as well, because Enscape doesn't have parametric editability within their trees either, which it's really sad because they got really nice content, but then you can't stretch it. But anyway, so I've talked enough about it, but now you can see here in plan. So they have a couple of options for you and how you want to see it in plan. So you can go for the realistic look, and that's the randomizer you can see there. So you can go for a realistic look and have the realistic symbol, or you can go for a symbolic look. And with a symbolic look, you can actually adjust it and change the fills to suit the colouring that you want to have for your drawings. You may want to have very nice coloured drawings for concept design and the like. So they're the type of thing, there's a lot more things detailed you can go into with it in plan. But as you can see, that's the different options. Now moving to elevation. Now you can see here in elevation, this is bamboo. This is such an elegant piece. Now, when you see the purple dot, it means that the randomness is turned off on this one, and it means that we can stretch this bamboo up and down. But look at how it changes as it goes up and down. It means that it's the random generator in terms of the uniqueness is going on in the background to determine what that is. So from my perspective, this is the best solution that I've found, or probably the only one that I know of, and I'm happy for people to tell me otherwise, because it'd be good to know if there are other solutions out there. But from my perspective, this is the best elevational-based solution that's available for people at this point in time. Now, moving on to BIMX. So the biggest complaint is and forgive me for my really crap movements in BIMX because I'm not used to using it, and I couldn't use the space mouse in this. So this was me trying to navigate, showing why the space mouse actually works so well. But you can see here in BIMX how wonderful this looks. Now, I'm normally really naughty. I normally crank up the resolution on these objects so that I get a better outcome. I just want it to look the best it can. These are set to the medium output at the moment, so these aren't even set to the highest output. Now this is in BIMX. Now we're going to go to, this is in Enscape. So we saw the quality of the trees that Enscape have, and they're really high quality, and they come out really, really nice. And the only thing that they don't have is obviously the ability for the trees to be unique in their shape and size. The one thing that these trees don't do, because they're not an Enscape asset, they don't blow in the breeze. But from my perspective, it doesn't compete. You look at this as an outcome. It ticks all the boxes for me with regards to trees. And once again, I'm happy for people to contest and tell me what otherwise. So moving on to Simple BIM. I honestly thought to myself that this tool would have been simpler. No, it's not. It's not that at all. This is a pretty, very, very clever tool that has been developed from Data Cubist. So taking the first step, it's actually, you can use it as an IFC model viewer. Now, that's not really where it's pitched. It actually is so much more than that. So when we look at the price point, this is substantially cheaper than having a Celebri Office license, which here in Australia I think costs around 12,000 Australian dollars up front. Then with an annual subscription, which I don't remember the number, or you can buy it, I think, also on subscription now, which still is highly cost prohibitive. Celebri has really powerful in many ways, but there's things that this tool, Simple BIM, does that Celebri doesn't do, and I'm not aware of many others that can do this. So this is what I love about this tool. It's a model federator, a standardizer, and an editor. Now, if I had Rob Jackson sitting here next to me right now, we'd be arguing and agreeing but disagreeing that what we don't want to be doing is standardizing and editing information outside of the authoring platform. But let's say, for example, we're in a position whereby you're a contractor or an architect taking on a project and you're receiving a file that's an existing IFC file from the client. for existing asset, and you want to standardize that and convert it so it works perfectly for you on your new project, that is where this is absolutely spectacular. It can take all that information and edit it. You can enrich the data. You can actually add data to it. You can change data. You can use this to actually add data in that you need to. So you actually don't need to have a BIM authoring software to actually enhance it. So this platform is probably well suited for people in the contractor side of the fence that actually have to meet client information requirements. It's a validation tool, so you can run checks and automations over this, which I'm yet to learn about. I haven't taught myself enough about this platform yet to understand how wonderful this feature works in terms of actually validating and checking against your client's requirements. But the other thing which is unique is the ability to export information out. You can filter it, federate it, enhance it. So from my perspective, there's Celebri. The one thing where Celebri falls over is you cannot actually export a federated IFC out of Celebri, which is rather frustrating, considering how powerful it is as a model checking tool. But this thing does more than Celebri can ever do. So that's what kind of excites me. So for people that are aware of my presentations from the past, this is my Simpsons house that I've used to present on a number of years. But I guess the first thing I get excited about is I go up to the merge IFC button, and in this project I have files from a structural engineer, mechanical, and electrical, and my architecture. So I got really, really excited about all of these things being in here. Then we kind of move on, and we can see here where you can go up, and you'll see that there's data attached to each of the elements. But then I'm getting excited. I'm going, yep, I want to be able to export my IFC straight away as federated model, because there's no one else that can do it that I'm aware of that's reasonable. But then we can run rules. Now, I'm not going to run rules in this session, but you can create a set of rules, and it basically adjusts or adds data or sets up processes that you might want to do. So these are kind of, I guess, what I'd suggest is automations that you can do, that you can perform on your project. We can come in and edit our properties, and we can also edit things and work through and understand how working in different workspaces and how we want to do that. We can turn things on and off depending upon what they are. We can click on things, isolate it, and cut, and all sorts of fun and games. But from my perspective, I look at this and I'm looking forward over the next 6 to 12 months to learn how this tool works more, because I'm hoping there'll be numerous projects that come along where I'll be hopefully sitting on a client side to assist them in delivering their outcomes and absorbing the information that's coming in from the supply chain. And you can see here all the values. And before I did this presentation, I already ran a rule, and you can see those items there have come in as they were added from Simple BIM. And you can see how all that information kind of lives within the model. So by no means is it a lot of information on Simple BIM, and when you start to do your research on this, you'll see that this is a very nicely sophisticated tool that can assist you to achieve things, which is really, really important. Now, in terms of a conclusion, so we're hit the end of the day, and one of the things that we've got to think about is there's been a lot that we've learned over the last 23 hours and about 40 minutes, we'll say. Now, what I want you to do is when you go away, not only for this session and the products and tools and software I've shown you today as part of this session, every session that you've attended today, I want you to sit down and I want you to think about every one of these sessions and every process that you've seen today. And I want you to then sit down and put a business case against it and ask yourself the question, is that session relevant to my business? Now, you got to look at it at two levels. You got to look at it at the level of not just your current needs as in terms of the deliverables that you currently deliver as a practice, but you got to look at it as moving into the future, having an understanding of where your clients are going, knowing that it's going to be a certain number of years before a client's going to start asking for information. So here in Australia right now, the government agencies are starting to align with ISO 19650 and starting to become more aware and asking for information to be delivered. So tools like Simple BIM become a necessity for you within your business. And you want to be able to have that tool in place before you start. Or you may be doing residential work and you have clients that are really savvy and want to see their projects with the real landscape in it. That might be where the trees come in. Or you might be doing internal fit outs, which is what the projects I was doing the other day, and model port becomes important. Or you might want to be doing a lot of existing capture. So all of these things, you just work your way through and find out the solutions to them. And by doing so, you'll become a better business, and you'll hopefully either provide a point of difference or you'll remain relevant. So because this is the end of the event, we probably won't look to hold questions from this session, and we'll go right to the close. So thank you very much for everyone for attending today, tonight, or this morning, depending upon where you are in the world. And I hope that you have taken away at least one thing from the event, because I personally believe that investing 24 hours in this event and watching the session, I know personally that if you watch the whole lot and you learn one thing, that you'll gain more than 24 hours back in 12 months, no matter what you took away from it. So it's very important that you do that. And the one thing I did also say when I closed my event last year is that it is important that you go away and you think about what you've learnt from all of the sessions today, write them down, and make actions. So there's this interesting kind of statistics around all of these things in terms of people that attend events and say they're going to implement things. But I want I want all of the attendees that are here now to be in a position where you actually become those 1%ers, where it's the only 10% really that ever action something when they've attended an event and become something. So don't be in the 90% that don't. I want everyone to be in the 10% that do. I want everyone to succeed that's attended this event. I want everyone's businesses to thrive. I want the Archicad community to grow. I want the Archicad community to be stronger. And I want businesses that choose Archicad, because it's my chosen software, to be more successful. So then we can then grow our community, because businesses realize that Archicad actually is the tool to assist them to get across the line in the delivery of projects. Now, I must thank our sponsors. The sponsors have been so kind and generous in putting together or providing sponsorship to enable this event to be run free. So first of all, I have to thank Enscape for their support and their platinum sponsorship. I need to thank NBS and BIMtrack for their sponsorship at a gold level. At the silver level, Imagine If Media. And at the bronze level, Asa Abloy. I'm going to forget them all and I'll get them wrong. Mac Interact. Yes, we'll get them all wrong. ArchiRadar and DataCubus for Simple BIM. So thank you very much to all those sponsors. I strongly encourage you to take the time to look at their options and products through our website, click through from our website to their site, so that they can see that you have interest and attended our event and actually took interest in it. I think that you'll realise that the offerings and the partners that we've partnered up with will drive you value in your organisation. The other people that we have to thank are all of our speakers. And our speakers over the last couple of months have put in a lot of effort to put together these presentations for you. Remember, they volunteered to also put together this event, and without their content, we wouldn't have the learning that we've had. So thank you very much also to you as an attendee. I hope that you've enjoyed yourself, that you've stayed awake, that you've been part of it. I'm hoping that there have been some extreme people like me that have tried to stay awake for 24 hours and absorb all this information. But anyway, now it's time to go to bed, recover, and come back next week and do more. So thank you very much, and thank you very much for being part of Arc Intensive 2021.